Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So, I took a month hiatus from YouTube, which was actually much needed because I felt like I have this tendency, as I think we all do, to create a toxic sense of productivity, and I would love to speak on that more. I do have some videos that I made, gosh, a couple of years ago now on YouTube about toxic productivity, but you know, it happens to us all. And you know, today I thought I want to do something relaxing. I want to make a video that I have been meaning to make for a very long time now, and that is my entire tarot deck collection. In this video, I am not going to be showing any oracle decks, and if you don't know the difference between tarot and oracle, tarot is a structured set of cards. Oracles can be about anything. They can be about crystals and plants and spirit animals, etc., while tarot tends to follow like a structured four-suit plus the major arcana type of thing. There are a couple different types of tarot structures, like the Thoth system, the Rider-Waite-Smith system, the Hermetic tarot, but they are all still part of tarot, if that makes sense. So today I'm going to be going through all of my tarot decks and showing you what they look like and talking a bit about my personal opinions on the deck. I want to keep this video as honest as possible. I definitely want to help you guys if you are looking to get into tarot or if you are interested in purchasing some other decks. I want to give you my honest opinions about them. And as a person who professionally gives tarot readings now, local tarot readings only, I don't do them online yet. But as a person who does professional tarot readings, I thought that my opinion might be fun, maybe, I hope. Anyway, before we jump into today's video, please be sure to give this a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more spiritually attuned videos, because that's kind of the direction we're heading. So I'm excited. Personal development and spirituality, that's where it's at. Alright, and without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right into this. So right off the bat, the first deck I want to talk about is the classic Rider-Waite-Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith artwork, RWS tarot deck. This box is super beat up. It's in a tuck box. I actually don't have a problem with tuck boxes. I know some people like the fancy schmancy, like, packaging for a lot of their decks, and I really don't mind the tuck boxes. I will say they wear out easily though. So like this one's pretty worn out, and I think at some point I'm going to have to get a bag because this tuck box just, yeah, it's seen better days. But this was my first ever tarot deck, and when I was first getting into tarot, I was very like picky about the deck that I was going to use, and I had this like idea for some reason that you only really needed one deck, and anybody who bought more than one deck, they were just like falling for consumerism and consumeristic ideas. Joke's on me, because look at future me. But also I thought that anything that didn't look like the traditional, you know, RWS pixie artwork, you know, I thought anything that didn't look like this, I just thought that they weren't accurate or like they weren't worthy? I'm not really sure what word I was looking for there, but just like I thought that it's best if they looked like this. If this was the only deck in existence, this would be fine, you know, but I was naive, okay? I was naive. But this deck has seen a lot of love. This is actually by Magic Seer, so this particular deck, we have like the backs are like this, and it's by Magic Seer. Of course, it's just like Pixie's artwork. It's pretty brightly colored, which is something that I, you know, didn't like at first, but now I'm starting to really appreciate it. I actually really like the bright blues and yellows and reds. Like, I really appreciate this color. Like, it's just so bright and so happy. So the edges of this deck are worn, like so stinking worn. They're like all messed up and very dirty. But this is my most used deck, in all honesty. Like, this is the one I go to. I do think it shuffles quite well, actually. There's nothing really like to go on about this, except that this is just the regular tarot, you know? There was, I believe, a small little white book with keywords at one point, but because I used Biddy Tarot a lot when I was learning tarot, I just kind of threw the book away. It wasn't really a book, it was like a little piece of paper, but I threw it away. I also associate crystals with all of my decks, and so this deck gets the Smoky Citrine, which was my first citrine and my only citrine for a while. And the reason for that is because this deck loves like career and work and finance readings. I call it my Capricorn deck because it only wants to talk about career for the most part. I have been able recently to get it to kind of talk about other subjects, but for the most part, the only clear and powerful readings are involving career and life goals and aspirations and stuff. So, yeah. Deck. So the second deck that I ever purchased was the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot deck by Matt Hughes. And this might be one of my prettiest decks, to be honest with you. I went to a local metaphysical shop called Inner Path, and I saw this beautiful like shimmer gilding. I don't know if you can see it on camera, I hope you can. And it caught my eye, and I decided to look at the deck. And again, at the time, I really wanted another deck because my Capricorn deck, as I like to call him, would not talk about anything else, and I wanted romance readings, I wanted readings about other things, and so I was like, I gotta get another deck. And so I found this one, and the thing about this deck that drew me in was basically its artwork and how pretty it was, but also because it's red or white based. It is the RWS inspired system, like that's the system that it follows. So it was very easy to follow the imagery, and for a while I used this deck as a study tool because this imagery was just less harsh and vibrant, and I liked it a lot better. And I felt like this deck wasn't trying to yell at me, well, as I tried to learn. So the box opens like this, which is fine by me, and then it's very cute. There is this little like pamphlet booklet thing, but it's not very useful. I do have it, but I don't really use it. So the backs of the cards are this like bright green and purple, and I almost don't like the backs, to be honest. There's something about it, I don't know, just the green is a bit too vibrant or something. The purple feels fine, but I don't know. But all of the cards have like this shimmer to them. There are some extra cards, I just happened to pull one out. This is the Well. I think the other one's the Artist. So there's 2 extra cards in it. But they all have this gold foiling on the front. The gold foiling just is so pretty. It's so magical. I really like this, and I like the artwork a lot. If you are looking for a more diverse deck though, this is not it. Now I do know the Artist has been making, I think, like a 2nd edition. I've been following him. I think he's making like a 2nd edition, or he already has. And there's a bit more diversity in like age diversity. There's more like racial diversity, etc., etc. This deck just doesn't really have that. Everybody's very young, everybody's very pale. So if that is important to you, then that's something to consider. I do think he's making another version though. But yeah, I have this, I don't know which edition this is, to be honest, but it's one of the earlier ones, and I really like it. I think the imagery is very sweet. There is some nudity in it though, but I don't find, like, look at the Devil card. It's not that creepy and eerie. It just looks very like sweet, and so that's why I like it. I think the parts that are the scary cards, if you will, are not as scary. As far as crystals that I associate with this deck, that I pair with it anyway, because every single deck of mine has a crystal pairing, I paired it with the Smoky Quartz. And this deck, if I were to give it an astrological like sign, because I did that with all my decks as well, it has more Libra vibes. So now, does that mean that it'll be good for Libras? I don't really know, but it gives me Libra vibes. It likes giving balanced readings. I feel like they're very well-rounded readings, very gentle readings. So I definitely really like using this deck for like life overview type of situations. The cardstock is very similar to the Magic Seer cardstock, so it's just, I don't even know what kind of cardstock this is, but it's kind of like papery, plasticky, and I find it to be very sturdy. I've been worried about the gold foiling getting scratched off or ruined, but to be honest with you, I haven't had that problem yet. It seems to be very durable, so I haven't had any issues with like flaking or anything like that. But overall, I just really like this deck. It's one I use a lot in photos because it's just so pretty. I really like this deck. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it, except that maybe it lacks diversity and it might be a bit too big for some people to shuffle with, but it's very durable, so I have to give it that. So this one is a bit of a more recent purchase. This is the White Newman, a Sacred Animal Tarot. It says created by Alba BG, and this is a Liminal 11 deck. I'm going to be honest, I do not like the cardstock, and the box is meh. So I don't like, there's a magnet so it doesn't fall out like the, I think the Modern Witch is one of the other Liminal 11 decks where it falls out. And this one, I had it on my wish list when I first started getting into tarot, and at some point I made the purchase. I was between this and the Cosmic Tarot. Both are Liminal 11 decks, both have very similar packaging, the exact same cardstock, etc. But I ended up purchasing this one, and there's a magnet that holds the bottom and it slides out. So I can do this. I was kind of scared it was going to fall, but it doesn't. It does not fall. So you undo the magnet, it slides out from the bottom, which is very interesting, very unique. The box is super sturdy, so it's not going to break. And then you have this really cutesy packaging, and then when you flip it upside down, so it comes with this like little hardcover book for the White Newman, and it's in full color. It's a very like cutesy, I think well-made book, all things considered, but I don't really like the meanings in it. I think that there's a lot missing, and there's a lot of nuance that's missing, and I think that, I don't know, I just don't really like the way that it's kind of written out. It probably would be okay for somebody who had a previous experience with the tarot, but anybody who's new, I think it might be a little confusing. The cards that confuse me the most are the White Newman and the Black Newman, which came with the deck. I do include them, but I kind of have had to create my own sort of intuitive meaning with them, because, I mean, I use their keywords, but the description of the White Newman and Black Newman in this doesn't make much sense. It's very like flowery language, but it doesn't have a lot of substance, in my personal opinion. And this is coming from somebody who is a writer. I've published books, and so I'm a bit pickier about what is written in the guidebook. And I just feel like this misses a lot. I don't know. I don't ever use this. So the thing I hate most about this deck is how thick it is. It is so thick, and it just feels thick, it looks thick, and I'm not a huge fan of the glossy cardstock. It slips and slides so easily, and that can be very frustrating to me when shuffling, especially if I'm shuffling like very aggressively or very fast. Then you have like half the deck flies out, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't like how half the deck flies out at all. This deck also doesn't really do reversals if you're using the backs. So the backs are non-reversible, so there's like a wolf dog thing and then some birds at the bottom. So you know that if the wolf is up, the card is upright. So that's kind of unfortunate. If you're doing like a spread like this and then you're picking, you'll know whether it's reversed or not. I just typically just let cards fly out, or I just draw from the bottom and go, oh, 8 of Cups reversed, you know? So that's kind of what I do. It does shuffle decently well. I mean, it's a decent size that fits in your hand pretty well, or at least in my hand pretty well. But the slipperiness, that plasticky feeling, it's not it for me. Another issue that I had when I first got this deck was how grainy the pictures were. For whatever reason, when I was buying this, I bought it from Amazon because it is mass market. It was just, I don't know, I didn't notice that it was grainy in the pictures, but when I got it, I was kind of a little upset that it was grainy. Like, I'm okay with it now, but when I first got it, I thought it was so grainy, and it just was not what I was expecting. I didn't really like this deck, to be honest, when I first got it. Just because of the cardstock, how thick it was, how slippery it was, how there weren't any, you couldn't do reversals. Like, there was just a lot that turned me away from using it. I do use it more now. I call it my Taurus deck. It's very grounded energy. It's very practical. I do like doing readings with it. And the stone that I pair with this one is Angel Aura Quartz. The imagery is what originally got me to purchase it in the first place. I love the powerful yet feminine women in here. I like that there's a lot of diversity in this deck. I love that it just feels very magical and mystical, like that Wheel of Fortune looks amazing. There is a bit of nudity in this deck, so if you don't like that, then don't get it. It has a very anime quality to it, a very cartoony quality, like This is the Magician, and he just looks super cartoony and cute. I do really like this deck. I like doing readings with it. I do think it's very cute, it's very cartoony, very colorful, and I really love how pretty the backs are, but I don't gravitate toward it mostly because it's difficult to shuffle and work with. Okay, so the next deck that I'm going to talk about, I actually should probably get the box. So the next deck I want to talk about is the Mystical Dream Tarot by Janet Piedolato. I hope I'm saying that right. So I have the box, but I keep it on a shelf, and my little mandrake that I made holds it because I hate this box. I fell in love with the art, that's what really captivated me with this deck, but the box is just no bueno. So when you open the box, you have a little ribbon, thankfully, and you pull it open, and the book sits on top, and your deck is split in half in this like weird plastic thing. But the thing is, you can't pull the cards out very easily because the thumb imprint things that allow you to pick up the cards don't go down all the way. So you ultimately have to flip it up and over and then drop the cards out, and it just creates a big mess. I don't use this box, and I was going to like set it all up again for you, but I'm not doing it now because I hate this box. So I have it, I keep it on a shelf, never use the box. Speaking of things that I don't use much, I have the book, the Mystical Dream Tarot book. This is a lot. I tried reading it, using it for readings to get a better understanding of the deck. I know I haven't even shown you the deck yet, but I've tried to use this for readings about the deck, and I didn't like it. I don't think that it helped me at all with learning the tarot or understanding my reading better. It just did not help at all. So if you are new, I do not recommend this deck for a multitude of reasons, but definitely for the guidebook. Like, it's not going to help you. No offense to the person who wrote it. But I just have issues with it because I think that it's huge. There's tons and tons of writing. I did try to read it just straight through, and I think there's a few issues. First, the language is so flowery. It's less about substance and more about aesthetic. So it's not about helping you understand the card, it's written to be a pretty poetic story type of thing. Not even a full story, like every card is its own thing, but yeah, hopefully you get the idea. I just don't like the book at all. Another issue with this is that it follows Gnostic and Egyptian myth a lot, like heavily influenced. And if you don't know anything about the Gnostic religion or anything about ancient Egyptian culture and symbolism, and if you don't know anything about the Egyptian pantheon, or I'm sure there's some religions in here I'm missing. I know they talk a little bit about Hinduism as well. If you just don't know those things, you're going to struggle to understand the artists' and writers' interpretations and purpose. But let's get into the deck. I do think it's great if you do know those things, and I have been trying to learn more about Gnostic philosophy, religion, that stuff, as well as Egyptian myth, but I am not at the place where I can understand what this author is trying to convey. I got this little silver bag. It has like this dark silver on the inside, this white on the outside. I got this at Inner Path, that metaphysical store I mentioned earlier. And the backs of the cards are silver, which I thought matched really well, because I knew I didn't want to keep it in the box. I actually asked for this for my birthday or Christmas. I can't remember which. My birthday and Christmas happened like about a month apart. So I just asked for it and my friend got it for me. And I really like the deck because my favorite thing about this deck is the art. Oh my god, I'm in love with this artistic style. I can't help it. I love the swirls. It feels magical. I love the color palette. It is probably one of the, I can't say the prettiest because I keep saying that about a lot of my decks, but I really love the art on this. It just speaks to me in some strange, weird way. This would be my Gemini deck, by the way, for as far as astrology goes. And the crystal that I pair with this one is kyanite. I really do love the art though, so stinking much. The major arcana has different names. So I think like the Hermit or something is the wisdom teacher. I'm gonna have to look this up. The wisdom teacher, yeah. Justice is Mott. Strength is Sophia. The Wheel of Fortune is the Ouroboros. The Wise Fox is Death. The Innocent is the Fool. So all of them are completely renamed, except for the Moon and the Sun and Judgment. And then when it comes to the court cards, you have like the Spirit, which I think is the Knight, Lady, which is the Queen, I believe Lord is the King, and I have no clue what the page is. I would have to find one and then I would know. Dreamer is the page. Also, if you are new to tarot, this is not going to make any sense. The imagery chosen for the cards does not relate to the cards most of the time. It just doesn't, which I actually kind of like. I think it's quirky and I think it's fun. It's definitely a dreamy, deck, and so I think that dreams don't always make sense, and I find that fitting. But if you're trying to learn the tarot, this is not it. You're not going to learn very well. No offense to the creator, but it's not a beginner deck at all. So the Four of Pentacles is an onion. This might be my favorite card. People didn't like that in the reviews I read about this being an onion. I freaking love that it's an onion. I think that's great. Does it mean anything about the Four of Pentacles? Not really, but I love it. So, I don't know. This deck makes me laugh. I really enjoy it. As far as cardstock goes, so it's the same height. It has rounded edges, but it's just slightly wider than the traditional tarot. But I actually kind of like that it's a little bit wider. It's very slippery cardstock, very flexible, which is great. It does hold its shape very well, so it doesn't like bend or get messed up really. But it's very slippery. It's just that slippery, plasticky cardstock that I'm not a fan of. That glossy cardstock. I just don't like it. But I like using it for altar decorations. So there's that. Okay, moving on. So if you have been on this channel, or if you saw my previous video about working with the tarot, you have seen the Mystic Fairy Tarot deck by Linda Ravenscroft. I did a tarot in practice sort of thing inspired by the Katie Flowers Tarot in Practice, where I tried to bond with this deck and get to know it. I think it worked really well, all things considered. But yeah, so this is that deck. So the Mystic Fairy Tarot was gifted to me at Christmas by my mom, and this one was actually, I think she got it from Walmart. Surprisingly, I didn't even know Walmart sold tarot decks. At least I think that's where she got it. Now, there is a bigger box with a whole guidebook that comes with this deck. I have seen it at the metaphysical shops. I've seen like the bigger packaging. I don't have that, so I can't give a solid review as far as the guidebook that's in that, or as far as the packaging, or anything else really. I don't even know if the cardstock is different, but there is a bigger version. But I have this small version, which I haven't really seen around, so I don't know how she found a small version, but I have not seen this anywhere, at least physically. But I haven't looked that much online either. So the way this one opens, I have to flip it upside down because it opens this way and your cards will fall out if you're not careful. So it definitely is a strange package. Like this is it's like a book. It's kind of weird. I'm not a fan of this. It spills very easily. If I'm carrying it, it usually falls and the cards go everywhere, and it's definitely a struggle to carry this one. And the stone I have paired for this one is blue chalcedony, and I forget the astrological association with this deck. I don't know what astrological thing I would give this. I'm between Gemini and Sagittarius, to be honest with you. It does come with this itsy bitsy little book, so it's a Llewellyn publication. It's just a tiny little white pamphlet, but all things considered, it's well written for the most part. I don't think it does reversals, though I do read reversals. And there's a bunch of spreads in the back, which I found that were really interesting, which I did use some of them in that video. So this little white book is not that horrible. I wouldn't say it's like the best thing, but if this was your first deck, I would say this would be pretty good. The backs are so cute. I love it. I love the fairy energy in this. It's definitely a trickster deck for me, and the people are very cute in it. They're all fairies. I do like it, and my favorite thing about this deck, which I've mentioned before, is that the minor arcana tells a story. So if you line up like 2 of whatever to the 10 of whatever, it creates a storyline. So that's why I think it's perfect for people learning the tarot, and it also follows the traditional RWS inspired sort of design as far as like elements go, as far as the court cards and major arcana is concerned, and for the most part I think that it adequately shows the meanings of the cards, even if it's not entirely like the RWS base system. I really enjoy the storyline aspect. I love lining them up and just seeing the story play out. When I first got this deck and I realized that that was what you could do with it, I just lined it all up and I loved it. I love that. I think it's perfect for learning. The cardstock is very slippery, glossy, not my favorite. I do think it can be troublesome sometimes to shuffle with it because of how slippery it is, but if you like glossy cardstock, then you'll be fine. You'll be plenty fine. It is a very thin cardstock as well, very bendy, and I have had issues with the edges kind of getting busted up, but maybe that's just my shuffling. Otherwise, I don't have that many complaints about it, other than it had a lot of trickster energy, but that's more about the individual deck than it is about all the decks that are made in this way. So the next deck that I wanted to review is the Cosmic Tarot, also gifted to me by my mom this past Christmas. So it's in a little tuck box. You just open it as you do any tuck box. If there was a guidebook or like a little white book in it, I have no idea where it went. I guess I got rid of it. I don't know. I do know that my cards are loose in this box, which means there was something else in here. I have no idea what I did with it or what that item even was. So this is made by US Games, and it's an older tarot deck, and at first I thought it was super strange, but it's become one of my, like, I don't want to say favorite decks because I don't use it a ton, but one of those like decks that speaks to my soul. It's not exactly my soul deck, but it speaks to me in some strange mystical way that I can't explain. The backs are very fun. There are a bunch of stars and like shapes, and I don't know, I just love the backs. I like the color. I don't like the white border, and so I have been tempted to trim the deck down, but then it won't fit in the box properly, so I'll have to get a bag, which is fine, but I'm nervous to cut my cards. I know some people do. I've watched Dawn Michelle at Buuuut Tarot. She has done tons of deck mods, and I love watching them. I think it's cool. I think her tips are amazing, but I'm like terrified to do it. But I would love to not have like all that, like it's just white because of the border. I would love to see the colors and like the space designs. I mean, look at this cool sword, this Ace of Swords. It's just fun. I do think the imagery is bizarre. It's almost like too realistic, but like it's fine for me. I actually don't like decks that are very realistic. To be like, just to put that out there, I don't. They unnerve me, like the uncanny valley type of thing. I don't like it when the decks like look so photorealistic. I don't know. I just don't like it. But this one, for whatever reason, I like it. It's like bizarre and kind of real, but like also not. It like unnerves me, but in all the best ways. I love how strange it is. I just like that. And it's kind of like the same feeling I have with the Mystical Dream Tarot. It's kind of the same feeling, like that's quirky, that's weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it also does. But I think unlike the Mystical Dream Tarot, this one is closer to the RWS inspired artwork by Pamela Coleman Smith. So if you're familiar with the RWS tarot system, then this will be very easy to use because it's very similar. Not entirely the same, so we have this Four of Swords and they have the swords laying down on a carpet rather than a person laying down, which is in the traditional artwork. But for the most part, it's very similar, and I think the message gets across very well. I also really love the colors and the color palette in this. And I love some of the hidden like things inside the deck, so like hidden in the imagery. In the court cards, so like here's the King of Cups and you have a crab because it represents Cancer, so the astrological symbolism is there as well. So I really, really like that. I find this to be a very fun deck to work with. My only issue is that when I got it, it was bent, so I don't know if you can tell on camera, but the deck is bent. I only shuffle it now so that it bends this part, and it just has yet to go back to being straight. It, for whatever reason, cannot go straight. It was made, it was crooked. So that's my only issue with it, that the quality wasn't really there. The cardstock's very papery. It's not as glossy, so it's not as slippery, but it's definitely papery and thin. So I have to say the quality's not the best, but it works. I forgot to mention that the stone that I put with this deck is hematite, and the astrological association for this one would probably be Virgo. So, the Crow Tarot. I did not think I was going to like the Crow Tarot, to be honest with you. But this is my soul deck. This is my soul deck. My friend gifted this tarot deck to me on my birthday, and I was like, oh, crows. Because that's not really an animal that I often associate with myself. Like if there was a moth tarot deck, well, yeah, I love moths. But I've never really cared or had a strong opinion about crows. And she gifted it to me, and I thought, this is bizarre. I did like an initial introduction, like interview reading, and the deck said that it was a Leo, and I definitely believe that it was a Leo. It gives me Leo vibes in the readings as well. But yeah, so it was like a Leo deck. I ended up pairing it with a red jasper, which is very grounded energy. It just matched the little red details in the box. That's kind of why I did it. What I never expected was for this deck to give me the most raw and most honest, brutal, but also insightful readings of a lifetime. I have never had a bad reading with this deck. It always like calls me out, and it's such a good shadow work deck. Like, oh my gosh, shadow work all the time. If I am feeling upset and I don't know why, if I'm upset with somebody, like this deck calls me out. So I love this, and the artwork has grown on me, and I'm just obsessed with this deck. I'm obsessed. So my opinions they're going to be biased. But this deck is created by MJ Cullinane? I do not know how to pronounce her name. She has a ton of other decks, indie decks as well, and I would love to purchase them. I just have not been able to. The box opens like this. The backs of the cards are like little crow feather type inspired designs. They're very bland. It does come with this cute little like Crow Tarot guidebook, which has lots of meaning and stuff. I do think you can get more information from other places, but all things considered, it's a very decent, basic meanings for like each tarot card, so I do like that. And there's a bunch of spreads in the back of the book as well, which are nice. I've done a couple of them. The imagery is so cute. For one, I love that the borders are all different colors. Do you see that? The borders are like stained paper, and they're all like different colors of stained paper, and I really, really like that. I like spreading it out and just seeing all those colors. The artwork is very collage-y. It's very strange. There's a lot of interesting colors and, you know, weather patterns going on. It's really cute to see all the crows just like doing their thing. I like it. I like it a lot. And when I see this deck, like when I use it and I put a spread out before me, it's funny because I don't notice the individual details of the artwork unless I like intentionally look at it. But as soon as I lay it down on the table, like I just know. It's like instant downloads of like, this is the meaning, this is what it was trying to say. It's just always so spot on for me. I never expected that. So it's definitely one of my favorite decks to use for shadow work and for personal readings for myself. And I really like the colors. I like the interesting collage-y patterned artwork. Again, if you sit and just look at it, there's a lot to take in, but I sometimes just like pull the readings and then am very impressed with the accuracy of this deck. So. The next deck I want to talk about is the Arcana Isis Sakra by Labrinthos. This is my most expensive deck and also my only indie tarot deck. I plan on purchasing a couple more indie tarot decks, but I'm waiting for them to get on Kickstarter or to just be published in general. And when I get them, I'll probably make posts about them either on Indie Tarot Mystique, which is the Instagram page that I have for my tarot business, or I'll put it on TikTok, my personal Instagram, or YouTube. So, yeah. all the handles are coming in on the screen now, I'm sure. But this is a stunning deck by Labrinthos, and I have the Labrinthos app. I really liked it. It was helpful when I was learning the tarot, except that you learn them like flashcards, and so I don't know how helpful that is, but it was one of the methods I used, and I think that with multiple other methods of learning tarot, like as far as like using story, caricatures, and then also learning like a flashcard, I think that that really helped. But anyway, it looks like a little book because of the design. I love the little foiling on the side and on the front, and then these are real, well, I don't know if they're real metal, but they're definitely like tough pieces, like that feel like real metal pieces. This cute little ribbon that you can untie. I will admit that this is kind of frustrating because tying the ribbon every single time is very time consuming, so it's not always fun to take this deck out because of that. So that's the inside. It's very well made, very luxurious. It's a very interesting experience. And then there's this little like pamphlet thing that just pulls out. The card meanings are very lacking, but that's partially because Labrinthos has an app. So Tina Gong has a lot more information on her app. So that's kind of what I would use. I don't really find this pamphlet that helpful. I don't know why I keep it in the box, to be honest. So here are the cards. They have this really pretty gold foiling on the sides. It is chipping a little bit since I've been using it. And then on the back, this one's crooked, but on the back, they have these little like imprint, like foiled pieces. So I really like that. I think it's very sweet. I love the marble coloring. Like it's a very, very pretty deck. And mine's currently in order because I was using it for study purposes. So I try not to get it out of order very much. The vintage look of these cards is so cute to me. They are thinner than normal tarot, so they are a lot thinner but the same height. So they feel very slim, but I kind of like it. I love the imagery in every single card. It's very well thought out. There's a lot of symbolism and meaning, and if you know what you're looking for, or if you know a lot about symbology and religions, myths, all that stuff, you'll be able to notice things more. I am not amazing at that stuff. I'm obsessed with religion, I'm obsessed with mythology. I love learning about symbolism, but I'm not amazing at catching all the little details. So, but I do find it very helpful and very sweet. This is a Thoth-based deck, and I'm not very familiar with the Thoth system. So strength is called lust, and justice is adjustment. Temperance is art. Then there's the aeon and the universe instead of judgment and the world. So it does take a little bit to learn if you are not used to the Thoth system, and it definitely is one that's a bit more challenging to read with if you aren't familiar with all of the symbolism as well. Each suit has a certain color, so this is the chalices or cups, and it's blue. And they have keywords, which I really like, and it also has the planetary and astrological symbols to help you better understand the deck. It's a great study deck, but the imagery doesn't really help you navigate the meaning of the cards, so I would say this is not a beginner-friendly deck. I think it's a good introductory deck for the Thoth-based system, aside from like the Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley, but otherwise, I think it's helpful if you're learning about mysticism and spirituality and like symbols, or if you're trying to better understand how the tarot fits in with astrology. I think that's very helpful. Or if you're trying to associate a certain keyword and, you know, expand your meanings. But otherwise, I don't know if it's that beneficial to beginners. I do like, however, that, like, say the Princess of Wands here, which would be the Page of Wands, has its Earth of Fire, because pages represent earth and wands represent fire. And so you can use those, like, those understandings for better understanding of the cards. I remember reading 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack, and she talks a lot about using the elements in the quartz to help understand court cards, and I find that to be very useful. So wands are red, swords are yellow, and pentacles are green, and I just really think this is a very pretty deck. The cardstock is certainly unique. It's a bit thicker, and it's not glossy, it's matte, and it's just, I don't know how to explain it. I love the way it feels. I love the way it sounds. It's very papery. It's my favorite deck to shuffle as far as like the texture. Well, not my favorite for texture, but it's one of my favorites to shuffle because of the texture, but also because of the way it sounds and just feels so crisp and clean. I really do like that. but I would say that the packaging is a little frustrating to tie up at the end. I am nervous about destroying the gold gilding, and it's definitely not beginner friendly. So while we're talking a little bit about cardstock, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite decks as far as cardstock goes, and that is Tarot of the Divine. This was my third ever purchased deck. This deck is my Pisces deck, and the stone that I use, that I associate with it, is rose quartz. It is such a sweet deck, and it loves romance readings. Just loves them. So the box opens like this, and there's a little guidebook on the inside. And so the guidebook's in full color, and there's a few spreads, and then it gives you a little bit of meaning, but there's actually a companion book that dives into each and every card a bit more. So I don't really use this guidebook for meanings, but I definitely do use it to look up the individual stories, because every card in this deck follows a different myth, lore, or legend from around the world, which is so cool. I love religion, I love myth, I love mythology, so this was amazing, like definitely an amazing find. And I do need to get the companion booklet at some point so I can better study it, but for now I've just been looking up the names and the stories as best as I can, so trying to figure out exactly where the story comes from. It has a little ribbon on the inside so you can pull up the deck. So here's the backs. I love the little moons. They're very cute. It's a very thick deck, so similar to the white Newman, this is very thick. However, it's easier to hold, and that is because it has linen cardstock. Linen cardstock is my favorite. If I ever made a tarot deck, which I don't know if I ever will, but if I did, if I could have it my way, every deck would have linen cardstock. I love linen cardstock. It just is so easy to grip, it's durable, it feels amazing. I love linen cardstock so much. It's not slippery. When you shuffle, it just gives an amazing shuffle. Like, I'm not worried that I'm gonna drop them. I love that. I love that so much. It just feels amazing. Now, I did edge mine in blue. Originally, they were white, and it just didn't fit the vibes, so I edged mine in blue. I did mess up a lot. It's my first deck that I ever edged, but I'm glad that I did. The blue is just very sweet, and it fits the backs very well, and when I spread it out, there's no white breaking it up and making it look a little weird. But the artwork is so vivid, it is so colorful, and again, there's like myths, there's tons of diversity, there's tons of stories that just exist in this deck. I love it. And it gives me tons of romance readings. This is probably one of the most common decks that I use for readings for other people, aside from my traditional RWS Pixie artwork deck. So aside from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this is the deck I use for everybody almost, for all kinds of readings. I just love it, and the artwork, it's very cartoony, but I think it's so sweet, and I love the cartoony vibes, I love the colors, I love the stories, I love the characters. Like, I like staring at this deck, holding this deck, loving on this deck. It's just so good. Everything about it. I have no complaints. I literally can't think of a single complaint. The artwork is sort of RWS inspired, not entirely, but in part it is. So if you are new to tarot, I think it's very helpful to learn from this, but then also you get to read these really cool myths and legends from other places that you may never have heard of before, and then read their stories and figure out how that connects to the card, because these are, tarot in a sense is just archetypes. It's like stories and archetypes and themes that exist in our world. Because it's the as above, so below thing. It's, you know, what's in the macro is also in the micro. And I really like that you can connect them, not just with your own personal meanings, but with lore from around the world. So I definitely, this deck, 10 out of 10. It's just amazing. I love reading with it. So when I purchased the Tarot of the Divine, I also purchased this deck, which is the Darkwood Tarot. This is a massive box. It's actually very heavy. But I purchased the Darkwood Tarot. It's by Sasha Graham. Art is by Abigail Larson. And so this, I'm going to set it down because it's heavy. This deck was specifically chosen because I was hosting a Halloween party last year, so last Halloween, and I was still in the midst of learning tarot. I kind of knew it, kind of didn't. and I really wanted to do tarot readings on Halloween, and I thought I want a spooky deck, because at the time I only had my traditional RWS deck, my Ethereal Visions deck, which as you saw was very pastel and light-hearted, and then the Tarot the Divine that I also purchased with this one. So this became my first dark and spooky deck, and I was like, this will be perfect for shadow work, it'll be perfect for Halloween readings, like one-card readings, just something for fun. But I had not bonded with the deck before the party, and so it gave me no accurate readings, and I made a complete fool of myself, and I am very upset that I did not bond with this deck sooner, but the deck kept telling me I was not ready. We took months before we bonded, and even then, like even now, the deck is very picky about when we do readings, as in, I don't know how to explain it to you other than I will ask the deck a question or try to do a reading, and it will give me the "you're not ready, we're not doing this today" kind of answer. This deck is a Scorpio. The stone that I associate with this deck is black tourmaline, tourmaline, I do not know how to pronounce it. This deck is huge, well the deck isn't, but the box is. So it has this magnet that you open up, and then there's a little ribbon, and there's this big guidebook. This is where all the weight is, and I have started reading it. I did not finish it, but it's so interesting because it gives beautiful meanings for all the cards, and I think that it also is very good at like helping connect the story. Tarot becomes a story where you like follow this character, maybe you are the character, I kind of forget how it's set up, but there's like the Fool, the character. It could be you, it could be another person, but you follow them or you go yourself through the dark wood and you meet all these other characters and come across all these other situations that reflect the themes of the tarot. So I think it's really cool. It's, I'm gonna go on the side. It's full color. They have big pictures, blown up pictures of the artwork of each card, which I love. It's just very sweet. I really like this deck, and I like how dark and eerie it is. So here's the backs, which is amazing. And the deck, actually, the way it's designed is that the upright meaning is kind of similar to a regular traditional tarot, like RWS tarot, upright meaning, but the reverse is like the extreme. The Darkwood takes it a level further, and like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's so good. It's so like, it calls you out. It's a really good shadow work deck. It's very dark, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like it takes that like magician reverse, which is all about manipulation, and just takes it to the next level. Like, and the questions it asks, like, I'm gonna see if I can find one real quick. I'm just gonna open it and see what we get to. Okay, so I have 7 of Wands. So like listen to this. It's like the 7 of Wands reversed. It says, the shadow meaning of this card is victimhood and ego identification. Victim mentality and poor me feeds the ego. And then it talks at the bottom and it says, examine how people disappoint you. Is resentment and pain a repetitive theme? What benefit do you receive from repeating these patterns? It just like calls you out. I love it. I love working with the guidebook with this deck because it's like, this is how Scorpios are, isn't it? Like, they just read you and call you out, and that's a lot sometimes. I have Scorpio friends, so I am a Scorpio too, but you know. I did edge this deck. The cardstock is not very sturdy, not gonna lie. I've kind of scuffed it up, busted it up a lot. The sides, I edged them in like this light brown color, and honestly, after edging the deck, that's really when me and this deck started bonding. It's super glossy, super slippery, very similar to the white Newman, except this cardstock is way thinner. Very thin, very papery, and it tears easily, or like it gets busted up and scuffed very easily. So I don't really appreciate the cardstock because it's so thin and it's so, like, you can easily ruin it. So if you're tough on your decks, then that's not going to be good. But it definitely, like, it's easy for getting flyers, as you probably just saw, because it's so slippery. So I think that if you like taking flyers, this is great because it's so slippery, but if you want more control over your deck, I don't think this is it. But the artwork is very pretty as well. I love the artwork. There's a lot of like feminine energy in it, which is cool. It is very dark, it is very creepy, and I do like the creepier images of like demonic looking horses and these like weird chaotic creatures, the scary clown. yeah, there's a lot of really cool things. It's a good Halloween deck for sure. If you bond with it before Halloween, that is. Alright, my next deck was an impulse buy, and I don't think I was ready for it, if that makes sense. I don't think I needed another deck, but I bought it. And this is the Muerte Tarot, Book of the Dead, and who is it by? Fabio Listrani, yeah. And it's a low Scarabeo deck. I got this from the metaphysical store that I always go to, and I should not have gotten it because I did not need another deck. And bonding with this deck has been very strange because I feel like we were not ready for each other. Though it has given me some pretty good readings. This deck is also a Pisces. I have yet to get an Aries deck, now that I think about it, and Aquarius. But yeah, this deck also gives me strong Pisces energy, familial energy. It loves ancestral things. It loves talking about family relationships and dynamics. And I think this will be a common deck to use for other people that I give readings to, just because it has that more wholesome vibe to it. So the top of this box comes off, and the deck's on the inside, and you pull it out. The guidebook, it's thick, but not all of it is useful for everybody unless you speak multiple languages, but then you're just reading the same thing over again. That much of the book is in English, and the rest is in different languages, which is cool for people who speak different languages and such. But my issue is that it doesn't really go into depth about the cards. So again, you're going to have to go to another outside resource if you're going to learn what these cards mean. So this is the backs. I love it. I love the blue and the red. It's just so cool. It's very pretty. The cardstock is also very glossy, but not too slippery really. So it's not as slippery as Darkwood, and it's not as slippery as White Newman. The cards themselves are the same size as traditional tarot, so that's fun. I think they're slightly like wider, but like barely noticeable. Like I think it's like millimeters. Yeah, it's a really interesting deck. I have trouble shuffling it because it's very stiff, it's very thick, but the artwork is very fascinating. I love it. I took Spanish in school for 6 years, and I passed the bilingual like fluency test, but to be honest with you, I have the vocabulary of like a 3rd grader, so like an 8-year-old in Spanish. That's the extent of it. But I do wish I could practice my Spanish a lot more. I still dream in Spanish. I did the other night actually, so fun facts about me. But it has like, there's cool skulls everywhere. Everybody's like skeletal. I just love it. It's just so colorful and happy, and I know that it's about death, it's about Dia de los Muertos, but it's just so, it's so cute. I really like this deck. I don't know if I'm a fan of like that border on the bottom. I don't really like that, but I've kind of gotten used to it. And I love all of the fun fabrics and clothing and the characters in it. I think it's very exciting and refreshing. I really do like it. I've used it as I've used it for altar cards before. I've used it for readings for others, readings for myself. Despite the cardstock being really thick, I mean, it's just very stiff cardstock. That might be the hardest thing about using this deck and shuffling with this deck. I don't really have much else to say about this deck. It's nice. It's very nice. So my next tarot deck, while it is a tarot deck, I actually use it as an oracle, which sounds silly, but I do. And I use it as like an addition, like a cherry on top of a reading. So this is the Ancestral Path Tarot. It is great for ancestor readings, great for familial readings, great for situational like friendship, relationship readings. I really do find this deck to be very fun. It was also gifted to me by my friend. It's also made by US Games. So I keep it as an oracle, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second, but there is no astrological association with this deck because I don't do that for my oracle decks. Some of them kind of, but mostly I don't. And the stone that I associate with it is clear quartz. So here's the great part about this deck. It's massive. It is huge. Like, here is my hand. There is the card. Here is a normal tarot card. Do you see the issue? Do you see what's going on here? I have such a hard time shuffling this deck. I've kind of figured out now that I have to hold it sideways and shuffle sideways. I struggle so much to shuffle it, and I also have to hold it sideways and do overhand like this, which feels so weird. It's massive. I feel like a child holding this deck. The interesting thing is that each of the suits follows a different culture. So this is the sacred circles, which are pentacles, and it follows native peoples in, I believe, the northern parts of North America. So like the northern part of America, like around Alaska, as well as around Canada. The swords follows, I believe, it's Japan, I know that, but it's a certain time frame in Japan. I don't even know if I have the card that told me anymore. But it follows a certain time of Japan when they were very prosperous. The staves or wands follow ancient Egypt, and I think the cups, I don't remember if their names, no, okay, it's cups. It's supposed to follow like the story of King Arthur and like the Knights of the Round Table. So medieval Europe? I don't know when that story started. As you can see, I am not very familiar with the true stories behind this deck, sadly. But what I do like about this deck is the artwork is very interesting. It's like vintagey to me, so I kind of like that. There's quite a few cards I don't like in this deck, but for the most part I like a lot of them. I think this one's very cute. There's tons and tons of cards that I love and tons that I just cannot get behind. I really want to find one that I absolutely disdain. No offense to the artist, but I do not like it. Here it is. The Fool. I think that's the artist. I have no idea. I have no idea if that's the creator of the deck, but she's holding the Fool card of herself, and then the backs of the cards that I'm currently using are there. It gets weird. It just feels weird to me. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's a cool concept, but at the same time, I'm just not a huge fan of it. But I definitely think this card is fun as an oracle. I use about 3 cards and no more if I'm doing it in a reading. It's definitely fun. I do think the artwork is very pretty. I definitely have favorite cards and like least favorite cards. So I definitely do use the tarot interpretations, but it's not used as a overall tarot for me, and that is, there's just lots of reasons. It's also very stiff cardstock, very cardboardy, so that's another issue I have with it as well. Alright, we finally reached the end of my entire deck collection, for tarot anyway. And we have the Smith White Tarot deck, the Centennial edition, and this is the miniature one. So it's in a little tin, and there's a little white book that I never use, and then the card. This is the tarot deck that I put in my purse and I carry with me everywhere. I love the backs, I love the color, and I'm very tempted to get the larger version. These shuffle amazingly. They feel amazing. I love them. They're so tiny and cute, but they shuffle like a dream, and I think it's because they're like playing card size. The imagery is very washed out. It's very vintage-y. It's not very bright, especially compared to the Magic Seer deck that I have. It's very grainy, very dull imagery. I really like it though. I like the vintage vibes. I think it's very cute. So I definitely like it. I've given a couple readings to friends and people that I know out and about because that happened. That's why I started carrying a deck with me everywhere, because people would ask me about tarot, they would ask me about what I do and how it works and if I could do a reading for them, and I was always like, I don't have a deck with me, but now I do. I carry this with me everywhere, all the places. I don't really have a lot to say about it because it's just an RWS inspired deck, but I like the vintage colors, I like the graininess, I like the muted tones, and I am very tempted to buy the larger version. Alright, that was my entire tarot deck collection. I hope that you guys found these reviews to be helpful or very insightful. I hope you liked seeing the decks. If you are interested in the Oracle collection, then let me know and I will make a little video for that. In the future, I'm hoping to make more videos about spiritual content and meditation, more journaling stuff, of course, because that is like the thing that I love doing a lot. It's my thing, you know? So yeah, I have no idea where this channel's heading, no idea what I'm doing, but I wanted to share this stuff with you, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that my reviews helped, and help you make choices on what decks you might get into and what you might start with. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like this video if you did like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And yeah, that's it for today. So I will catch you later.